welcome back to The Picture Show. I'm your host, Sarah Patterson, and today we're not only going to be talking about a movie, but also a person. Rocketman is the biopic movie starring Taron Egerton as the one and only Elton John. He is joined by Jamie Bell playing as his longtime friend and songwriter Bernie Taupin, and Richard Madden playing John Reed. Before we dive in, let's take a look at the trailer.
Feeling empty.
I could hear the whole tune in my head. It was all there, I could see all the notes, and I just had to get it out.
It's a little bit funny, this feeling inside.
What did you say your name was again?
My name is...
Reggie!
Reginald Dwight.
Reginald? That's my granddad's name.
So how does a fat boy from nowhere get to be a soul man?
You gotta kill the person you were born to be in order to become the person you wanna be.
I'm thinking of changing my name to Elton.
But that's my name.
First sleeping arrangements, kiddo. All of this is gone.
I just hope you realise you're choosing a life of being alone forever.
Don't you want to just sing without this ridiculous paraphernalia?
People don't pay to see Reg Dwight. They pay to see Elton John.
Sorry.
Brennan. Do you even care how much pressure I am under?
Not really. I'll still be collecting my 20% long after you've killed yourself. Maybe I should have tried to be more ordinary.
You were never ordinary.
What a shy little boy you were. Look at you now.
Elton Hercules John is one of the most highly acclaimed and successful solo artists of all time. Elton has achieved 26 gold, 38 platinum, and 1 diamond album. He has sold more than 300 million records worldwide and holds the record for the biggest selling single of all time, Candle in the Wind, that was released in 1997. Since launching his first tour in 1970, Elton has had over 4,000 performances in more than 80 countries to his credit. Elton was the most successful solo male artist in the History of America charts, and the third most successful artist overall, behind only Madonna and the Beatles. He has logged 67 Hot 100 entries in 1970 and 2000, including 9 number 1s and 27 top 10s. He achieved 7 number 1 albums in 3.5-year period from 1972 to 1975, a period of concentrated success only surpassed by the Beatles. Here with me today to talk about the ups and downs of the movie is Jon Stewart. John, tell me what your first impression was after this movie opened and you got to see the opening scene and just the way it was laid out.
Well, my first impression, I'm like, it's a musical. So I'm like get really into it and all this stuff there. So like, I really didn't understand Elton John, cause like I seen him in
Kingsman.
Yeah, in Kingsman. And like, so like when I finally seen the movie, I was like, wow, I didn't know like he did a whole bunch of like music, like stuff like that, like the Circle of Life for Lion King. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that actually until earlier while I was reading that he was a part of a couple Disney movies, the most popular being The Lion King. So
like I was just like shocked, and then like all his different like outfits and stuff like that. I was like, wow, like he's flamboyant. Like I appreciate that. Like I just feel like so inspired by that.
So as someone who has seen Bohemian Rhapsody and now seen Rocketman, they were directed partially by the same director. Dexter Fletcher was the person who did 4 years of pre-production for Bohemian Rhapsody, and then they had some differences on set, and he ended up leaving, and then it was followed by Bryan Singer. Bryan Singer actually got fired from the set, and they brought back Dexter Fletcher to finish the movie. And that was Bohemian Rhapsody, and Dexter Fletcher also does Rocketman. Do you think that, like, you could definitely tell that these movies might have been directed by the same person, like has that same kind of feel, or do you think they're completely different?
It probably, to me, I feel like they probably had like the same feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, so the movie starts off and Elton John you see him as the older Elton John, you see him going to rehab, and then he starts reenacting his past in a way, and then it kind of breaks out into this beautiful like song and dance. And for this movie being made about someone who hasn't died yet, in comparison to like Bohemian Rhapsody being made to be about Freddie Mercury, they had to take certain liberties on making it different. Like, what do you like better? What did you enjoy more, Bohemian Rhapsody or Rocketman? And like, just give me your opinions on all of it. What were some of your favorite parts?
Now, for Rocketman, I liked how they had like the little rehab scene, and like they broke it down like from his childhood all the way to like what he is right now. And then like at the end of that, like he just bust down to the song talking about, I'm still standing, cause like, you know, he's still standing, you know, so he's still here today. So I liked that. I saw that little train of thought going on. Then for Bohemian Rhapsody, that right there, I mean, I liked it, but like I felt like Rocketman was like way better than
Really?
I felt like it was.
What made it better?
Cause like I could really just connect to him way more than I can really connect to like Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
Cause like it was more about like a group, but like with Rocketman it's just like one person. Like you can really just see his backstory, and you can see how he became who he is today. So I was like, oh.
Watching his backstory. So I am an Elton John fan, but at the same time I was not introduced into him until later in life, obviously when my music taste started branching out. I did not realize he went through all of the stuff that he went through, and the fact that he still prevailed, and like some of the parts of the movies, like it was a really beautiful mix of the way they did it. There was so much sadness and there was so much realness, and then it was also happy, and there was jokes, and like it like made you laugh here and there.
Okay.
One of my favorite quotes from the whole movie is in the beginning. Elton John, he gets in this group with the soul people, and he wants to know how he can be a soul man. And the guy tells him, and I quote, that you need to kill the person you were born to be in order to be the person that you want to be.
I remember that quote.
How did that make you feel? Like I feel like that was the first time, other than like his childhood, the movie just hit you with like a real bomb of like, I don't know, that was deep to me.
Man, it was deep, because I feel like, you know what I'm saying, since like the way he said that, I felt like we're so used to being in our comfort zone, we need to come out of our comfort zone to see like how we can like really be. So like, just like me with acting, because like I was like real shy until like I really just put myself out there. So like, look at me, so I'm here now, so I'm doing performing arts for Bipsy and all that stuff, that SLT, so.
What was your defining moment? Like, what made you be like, I need to get on stage and be a theater kid?
Take it back to my third grade year. We had a third grade celebration, and like dancing. I'm like, oh, okay, I can dance. Like, ooh, like Chris Brown, like Michael Jackson. And all that. I said, oh, so I need to get into that. So I started like performing on stage and all that. And then when I really got to like middle school, my 6th grade year, we had drama club.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, I got really into that. I'm like, wow, like I could really be an actor. Like this might be for me, cause like I couldn't play sports. Like I tried, but like it wasn't for me.
I agree. I'm not a sports fan. That's why I review movies. So. We're going to take a quick break. Before we come back, we're going to check out our streaming and DVD picks of the week, and we'll be right back to talk more about Rocketman.
Oh, yeah.
If any of the children you know are among the estimated 15 million who take care of themselves between the time they get home from school and the time their parents get home from work, a look at after-school programs might be of interest. According to Colorado State University, more than 4 out of 10 children in kindergarten through 8th grade participate in such activities at least once a week. These programs can keep children safe, help them develop social skills, and improve their academic performance. High school students in after-school programs tend to be optimistic about the future and have more interest in school than their peers. They're also more likely to attend college, vote, and volunteer as adults, reports the Journal of Adolescent Research. After-school programs help with career exploration, skill development, service learning, and internships. It's estimated every dollar spent on after-school programs saves taxpayers $3 because of reductions in youth crime, teen parenthood, and school dropout rates. That may be why so many parents, teachers, and others are urging their communities to support after-school programs. You can help your child beat bullying. First, you and your child should know he or she is not alone. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says 1 in 5 kids is bullied at school and 16% are bullied electronically. Next, consider these ideas for dealing with the problem. For one thing, try to get your child to develop his talents and positive attributes, music, athletics, art, so he can be more confident. Next, teach your child safety strategies, such as to seek help from an adult when feeling threatened by a bully. Talk about whom she should go to for help and role-play what she should say. Assure your child that reporting bullying is not the same as being a snitch. Help your child meet new friends in and outside of school. A new environment may provide a fresh start. Finally, make sure your child has a safe and loving home environment where he can take shelter, physically and emotionally, and always maintain open lines of communication with your child. More helpful advice can be found online at cdc.gov.
Hi, I'm James Farrar, and this is a look at what's new on DVD and streaming this week. First up on DVD, we have Men in Black International, starring Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson, and Liam Neeson. The Men in Black are back to face what might be their greatest threat to date. This time, an all-new team is taking it global. Alien attacks have been happening from Morocco to Italy. At the London headquarters, Agent M and Agent H work to piece together the clues that will lead them to the otherworldly origins of the attacks. Will the trail lead them to a newly discovered alien species, or will it find them pursuing one of their own kind? Also this week on DVD, we have Ma, featuring Octavia Spencer. In a small town in Ohio, new kid Maggie and her friends, teenagers preparing for a night of partying, approach a woman outside of a liquor store to ask her if she'll help them get alcohol. She hesitates at first, but then helps. She even offers them a place to party in her basement. The woman, Sue Ann, has lived in the town her whole life. She's not known by the townspeople for being social, yet the kids soon learn that she's incredibly cool and outgoing. She doesn't have many rules either. She asks that the teens call her Ma, never go upstairs, or use foul language in her home. Lastly, she requires that at least one of them remain sober. What the teens don't realize is that Sue Ann sees them as an opportunity to have the popularity that she never enjoyed when she was their age, at any cost. As for what's new on streaming this week, let's begin with Netflix, which features a bunch of new movies highlighted by Superbad, starring Jonah Hill, Michael Cera, and Christopher Mintz-Plasse. 2 codependent high school seniors are forced to deal with separation anxiety after their plan to stage a booze-soaked party goes awry. Finally, over on Hulu, the Matrix trilogy debuts this month, starring Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, and Carrie-Anne Moss. A computer hacker learns from mysterious rebels about the true nature of his reality and his role in the war against its controllers. And now that you're all caught up on what's new in DVD and streaming, let's get you back over to the picture show.
Welcome back to the review of Rocketman. I'm Sarah Patterson and this is John Stewart. We're here talking to you today about the ups and downs of the movie, and it was a really big emotional roller coaster. This movie is actually classified as a fantasy musical biopic, and so by fantasy I was going to talk about why it is fantasy, and that's because some parts of the movie are actually they're not completely accurate, but Elton John had to give his say-so on it because he is the executive producer of the movie. So one thing that I wanted to bring up, and that I was excited to learn in the movie and then a little disappointed that it wasn't real in real life, was that Elton John didn't pick John, the last part of his name, from John Lennon like they depict in the movie. In the movie, you see him being asked what his name is, and he says, Elton. And then the guy's like, Elton what? And he looks over and he sees a picture of the Beatles and sees John Lennon and says John. When in reality, the movie is accurate. He does get the name Elton from his bandmate Elton Dean, but his name John comes from Long John Baldry, a 1960s London rocker, and he was actually the same man who discovered Rod Stewart. So that's kind of a big deal. I feel like they kind of should have credited the actual person that he got it from, since he apparently has some tenure to him. But I think they did the Beatles because there's like this overall running theme of like really famous English musicians, and like to throw the Beatles in there I feel like would make you like it even more. How do you feel about that, them throwing that in there?
Hey, I support it.
You support it?
I support it all the way.
Why?
Cause like, you know what I'm saying, it brings like different cultures together and all that stuff there. So like, it like made the movie more interesting. I was like, oh.
It definitely perked you up because everyone knows John Lennon, but not everyone knows Long John Baldry. I didn't know who that was, but the fact that you discovered, Rod Stewart and he was a mentor to Elton John is kind of a big deal, I think. Another thing that the movie portrays a lot of is Elton John's relationships with people. One of those people being John Reed, who is played by Richard Madden, who is a huge Game of Thrones star. And he did a really good job in the movie, but as I was telling you earlier between break, I think my least favorite part of the whole movie was Richard Madden's hair. It just was like the only thing that looked out of place in the whole movie. I mean, you have Elton John or Taron Egerton playing Elton John in these extravagant costumes, and he looks like he belongs in them, and then you see Richard Madden's hair, and you're like, is that a toupee? But with that being said, the movie portrays Richard Madden as he's the villain pretty much. And Elton John and Richard Madden actually married in real life for 5 years. And in the movie, it depicts them having an awful breakup. And that they never talk to each other again. The quote in it that he says is, "I'll still be collecting my 20% long after you've killed yourself," because obviously Elton John's really bad off on drugs. How did that make you feel?
I was like, no, I don't want them to break up. I felt like they were just a beautiful couple, and I feel like I know they were no couple, but they had that connection though. And when it's from the split up, I was like, no, I need them, y'all need to stick together, y'all supposed to have that bond. And when that happened, I was like, no, we finna go down the dark path, and we gonna have to get my boy back on track. And I was like, no.
I felt from the beginning, whenever you see him and they kind of have their one night stand, and then he tells him, if I'm ever in London, I'll come see you, or in America, I can't remember where he was at the time. I'll come. Oh, he was in America. He said if he ever comes to England, he'd come see him, and then he just pops up again one day, and I was like, you're playing with my boy's feelings right now.
Because he went back home. Mm-hmm. And he was trying to tell Elton to come back home, but he didn't want to come back home.
Yeah.
He wanted to stay do his thing.
Well, I mean, you just got all this fame and stardom up, and I can see why.
Yeah.
And so the relationship between John Reed and Elton John was actually depicted a little differently on screen than it was in real life. And on screen, they do say and mention that, some of Elton John's most prolific years, I said earlier, it was between 1970 and 1975. He had the largest concentration of success, only compared to the Beatles, during the time he was married to John Reed, because John Reed was his music producer. But then they broke up. And in the movie, they depict it as this awful breakup. And in real life, they're actually still friends till this day. So that was... I feel like they took a lot of liberties with the movie to make it interesting and, have a climax and to bring things together. But how do you feel about them altering, the actual story?
I feel like they should have just kept true to, how they really just was, in real life, instead of just, trying to make it seem like it was something else, but it really wasn't. So, if they would have kept it on track, how, it really was, I feel like it would have been, really more real, and then instead of just getting off a track, I'm they had a bad breakup, but really and truly they never did.
They probably did have a bad breakup, but then they didn't not talk to each other again. So I can see it, but I don't know. That's one reason I feel so I was a little bit more lenient on liking Bohemian Rhapsody in comparison, and I know you like Rocketman more than Bohemian Rhapsody, but I particularly like it just because it stays a lot more true to what actually happened. But with Elton John being the executive producer in this movie and giving the green, it's what am I really supposed to say? If Elton John says it's okay, it must be okay. So let me see. There's a few other differences that the movie had, the song he played at the Troubadour the first night. He didn't play the Crocodile Rock. He played something else, and they pretty much mix up the songs in the period. Some of the songs that they have put out in certain parts weren't even written during that time.
Oh, for real?
So that was one thing that they did. But in general, it's still meshed. I feel like they did what they needed to do in order to make a fluid story. But When we come back, you guys, we are going to wrap up talking about Rocketman and the things that we liked the most and the things that we didn't like so much, maybe. Coming up next, we have the Friday Flick Pick. Stay tuned.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, poor nutrition, including too many high-calorie, low-nutrition foods, is behind much of the obesity, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, and diabetes that plague Americans today. Fortunately, you can protect yourself and your family. It can help to make sure your children eat enough fruits and vegetables. CDC research suggests 90% of kids do not. There are a number of ways to encourage proper nutrition, including eating fruit and vegetables with your children to show them you enjoy it. When serving frozen or canned vegetables or fruit, choose those with low or no sodium and no added sugar. Provide fruit and vegetables for snacks instead of less healthy options. Include your kids when shopping for, growing, and preparing produce. Be aware of what counts as a serving of fruit or vegetables. For example, 1 small apple, 8 large strawberries, 12 baby carrots, or 1 large ear of corn. Families can find more facts and helpful advice online at cdc.gov.
I'm Kayla Kennedy with this week's Friday Flick Pick. It Chapter 2, starring Jessica Chastain, James McAvoy, Bill Hader, and Bill Skarsgård returning as Pennywise, hits theaters this week. 27 years after their first encounter with the terrifying Pennywise, the Losers Club have grown up and moved away, until a devastating phone call brings them back. Now let's take a look at the trailer for It Chapter 2.
Something happens to you when you leave this town. The farther away, the hazier it all gets. But me, I never left. I remember all of it.
To the losers.
We made an oath.
I swear, if it isn't dead, if it ever comes back, we'll come back to it.
We didn't stop it.
Pennywise.
The clown. We can't let it happen again.
Hello?
Hello.
For 27 years, I dreamt of you. I craved you. I missed you.
We need to finish it. For good.
I've seen all of us die. It consumes us from the inside until we don't have a choice anymore.
You lied. And I died. You lied. And I died.
Well, that's it for this week's Friday Flick Pick. I'm Kayla Kennedy. Let's get you back to the picture show.
Welcome back to the Picture Show. I'm Sarah Patterson here with John Stewart. We're finishing up talking about Rocketman. And when I say we're finishing up talking about Rocketman, let's talk a little bit about musicals in general. So, every generation has its kind of own wave of movies, as now Disney is remaking live action of all their old movies for the newer generations. And so that's kind of what's happening with the musical movies. First there was Bohemian Rhapsody and then Elton John, and they're kind of covering, like, a lot of musicals I feel are not based around rock and roll music, kind of like these are. But there's one movie in particular that I do not approve of, but I know there's a lot of hype around it, is the movie Yesterday. And it is about the Beatles, but instead of being a biopic or an homage to a singer, it is a movie about this Indian guy who lives in this alternate universe where the Beatles have actually never been invented or haven't existed, and he has access to all the Beatles songs. What do you think about that? Like, I don't even want to see the movie. Like, the first movie, Bohemian Rhapsody, I feel like is going to do the best. And then if Rocketman does really good, it's because strictly Elton John. But you come in on the end with a Beatles movie after there's been already so many great Beatles movies. Like, what you think that movie's gonna crash and burn?
I'm a team no go on that. No go. Like I was like, when I seen the trailer, I was like, I'm not too interested in this. Like,
There's been so many great movies already with the Beatles actually in it, and then a great Beatles movie for anyone who wants to see something better than Yesterday is Across the Universe. And so that movie, along with these two movies, and then even like Moulin Rouge, it kind of has that modern feel to it compared to some of the other musicals you would go see. And I'm just curious, out of like all the musicals you've ever seen, what's your favorite?
I had to say like any musical, like any
musical.
I had to say Oklahoma.
Oklahoma? I've never even heard of that. What is that?
You never heard of Oklahoma?
I have not.
It's like a Western type movie, like musical, and like it's beautiful. I seen the one with Hugh Jackman in it.
Oh, okay. So I'll definitely watch it since it has Hugh Jackman.
Yes.
But you're gonna have to tell me about that after this is done. Final thoughts on Rocketman. Go.
The shoes. Let's talk about the shoes. I'm a like huge shoes fanatic, and like when he came out with them rocket boot type of shoes with the wings on, I was like, oh my gosh, I need those with the little platform. I like, wow, like bro.
You were the shoes person. I was all about the sunglasses. I love whenever he was sitting there with a suitcase full of sunglasses. That was prime right there.
I just love his shoes. Like all his shoes were just amazing.
Overall, I'm going to go 5 out of 5 for this movie.
Yeah.
Same. Okay. It's hard to deny that any movie starring someone or being based around Elton John or someone that famous, it's got to be good unless you're Yesterday. But that's all the time we have for you today. I'm Sarah Patterson. This is John Stewart, and we'll see you again next week. And I think we're going to be reviewing It. Till then.